Live from Plutopia Towers. Welcome to the Plutopia News Network with the not ready for cable news players, Scoop Sweeney, Susie Sheeler. Maggie Duvall is absent tonight, but we have as our guest Thorne Dreyer. Take it away, Scoop.
Hey, we're happy to welcome Thorne to the Plutopia Happy Hour. I'm going to read from this bio. Thorne Dreyer is a notorious leftist troublemaker, alleged to be the love child of Joseph Stalin and Jane Fonda. Wait, that's the bio from the Houston Police Red Squad.
Yeah, really.
Fake news is everywhere. The real Thorne Dreyer is the child of acclaimed artist Margaret Webb Dreyer and journalist Martin Dreyer. Thorne's a writer, editor, publisher, activist, and radio host. He is involved in the creation of two critically acclaimed underground newspapers, The Rag in Austin and Houston's Space City. And he does all sorts of stuff besides that. If we went into his entire bio, we wouldn't have any time left on this 1 hour show. So we'll just say, Thorne Dreyer.
Well, that's okay.
Welcome.
I'll just take a nap.
I was going to use your Wikipedia entry, but it's only an hour show. So it's glad to have you on. It's not the radio, but it's sort of radio.
It's kind of radio. Well, it's an honor to be here. I'll call it radio.
Well, we have a bit of a history with radio, and I'm really
we do.
Interested in some of your remembrances about the very early days when you were a young college student, came to Austin. Did you expect to have things go the way they ended up going when you came to college?
Do we ever? I knew I was ready. Like you said, my mother was a pretty acclaimed Houston artist, and my father was a well-known journalist, and they were both kind of humanist liberals, and my mother was a women's activist, and they had an art gallery, and all of the gallery openings were like major salons with, intellectuals and writers and rock and rollers and pacifists and all kinds of things. And so I grew up in an art gallery. I grew up as a journalism brat. And so when I came to Austin, I was ready. I was ready to go. I already knew that I was a radical.
How did that happen? How did you decide to put the rag together? I mean, were you just hanging out with some friends and thought, hey, this is a good idea?
No, the rag kind of was a logical growth. I was involved with SDS first in Austin when I first got here.
And that is the
Students for Democratic Society, and which was the largest student-based organization in the history of the country. Certainly the student activist-based organization. And so we were involved in doing a bunch of stuff already before we had started the rag. But it just seemed like the rag was a logical thing. The Daily Texan, which had always been kind of a reliable liberal voice on campus, was a far right wing nut was elected editor of and the previous editor was a woman, Kay Northcott. And so he said one of the ways he campaigned was he didn't want he said no more, women editors. So
wow.
So anyway, he won. And so we decided we needed to start something, but we also needed to start a paper. And we thought that was the logical thing to do. Austin already had this just massive community of a range. I mean, like SDS and the Speedunkers. I mean, it was this incredible range of counterculture people, but who were all sort of simpatico. And so it was our job to sort of pull those communities together and do it in a way that was a lot of fun. The first couple of issues had come out, and Gilbert Shelton, the famous cartoonist, started the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers and others. He decided, that's not Gilbert Shelton.
No, that's you.
Yeah. So Shelton decided that the rag needed some jazzing up, that it wasn't fun enough. So he started the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers for the rag. And so we had Jim Franklin did lots of covers. Jim Franklin, the surrealist armadillo artist. And so we had lots of humor. We had lots of strong political coverage, and it was just a lot of humor. We just had a lot of fun. It was it lasted 11 years, which is one of the longest running underground newspapers in the country. If people don't know what an underground newspaper is, which people probably don't, I just assume all these things. SDS, what do you mean? So if people didn't know what an underground newspaper was, starting in about 66, 65, these papers just started popping up all over the country. In Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Free Press, the Berkeley Barb, the Paper in East Lansing, Michigan, the San Francisco Oracle, the Great Speckled Bird in Atlanta. All these papers, all of which were the Chicago Seed, they were all different, but they were all interconnected. They were similar in lots of ways. Some of them were more kind of psychedelic, and some were more politically radical, but they all traded articles and traded subscriptions, and so eventually, and the rag was like the 6th member of the Underground Press Syndicate. So there we go, Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers.
There they are.
There they are. So they started in the rag, and Gilbert Shelton, who designed them, they're republished in, and he also did Feds and Heads and Wonder Warthog and all these other things. So he now lives outside Paris, and
has for quite a while, right?
Has for quite a while, and the Freak Brothers are translated into I don't know how many languages, all over the world. They're all over the world.
And they were been translated into a movie. Freak Brothers movie is coming out soon.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what the status of it is. Do you?
No, I don't.
Like most movies, they're kind of in limbo because there are no
Yeah.
movie theaters.
Yeah,
But,
I assume
I
they
keep
will be
seeing stuff
online.
online about that, and it looks interesting. And Gilbert apparently was involved in the production, so that's good.
John Goodman is in it, and
Oh, wow.
has a great cast. I can't remember the others right now.
He's my favorite.
That was the rag, one issue with
I
coffee
remember it well.
stains on it. I think I spilled my coffee on that one.
I remember the meetings in the basement of the University Y,
Yeah,
which is now Church of Scientology.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That was not the first office. The first office was just a big old house. But when it was over there at the Y, the Y was set up so that the basement was kind of, it's kind of like a New York where you'd have a basement that you could, half of the window was visible from the street. It went down. Well, it was kind of like that, as I remember. And Jim Franklin would always come when there would be a staff meeting and before production. And Jim Franklin, if people don't know Jim Franklin, he's just an incredible, remarkable character who's also very famous. He's the one who made the armadillo an iconic figure in Texas. He's the one responsible for that. The armadillos are all starting up. They have a club to try to get rid of him because they said now everybody's trying to run them over on the road apparently. So
Thorne, when I was a student at about that same time at beautiful North Texas in Denton, we got the occasional issue of the rag, usually from someone who went down to party and brought it back with them. So they wouldn't be real current. But I remember asking a UT student if the rag was the student newspaper. He said, "Well, I don't think they have a student newspaper. It's the only thing anyone reads down here." I went, "Okay." Hey, so this UT student had never even heard of the Daily Texan. So mission accomplished, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess so. When we put Susie. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, and then you started Space City. Is that right? How did that progress? What was the progression there?
Well, but after that's a Jim Franklin. That's a piece of Jim. That's a Jim Franklin armadillo there, by the way. I was only at the rag for a couple of years, and then I went to Liberation News Service in New York and worked with Liberation News Service. The rag, the early years were the really exciting time. It was all very dramatic. There was all that craziness, all the stuff was happening all over the country. We started in 66. And so that 66, 67, 68, those were the big years. But anyway, so then I went to Liberation News Service, which was sort of the AP of the underground press, and worked there for a while. And then two of the people who were originally helped found the rag came up to work with me for a while. And then we got two other friends who were community organizers, Cam and Sue Duncan, and we decided that we were going to all go back to Houston and start a newspaper. And Houston had different kind of needs. It was a different kind of city. It was so much more spread out, but it still had all this community of freaks and there's our Crumb, keep on trucking
for sure.
City. And so we just decided we wanted to start a paper down there. And the paper in Houston just lasted about 3 years, but it was a great paper. It was maybe a more evolved paper than the rag. It had great interpretive news coverage. It had power structure research. It had terrific arts criticism. So it was very cool.
So why not bring Space City back to the air instead of rag? I'm just wondering, you brought rag blog and then you came onto the air. So I'm wondering if Space City seemed to be more structured, I guess, why not that?
Because there's a rag community that has lasted through all of these years.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, the rag lasted 11 years, one of the longest running papers. And then there were still, I mean, Austin, the community stays, you know? And so Alice Embry decided to pull together a reunion, Alice and a couple of other people, a reunion of the rag, and it got everything started again. A big reunion. All of a sudden, pretty soon we started growing out of that reunion was the rag blog. And then the rag blog, and then a few years later, I started Rag Radio. So it's all a continuation. It was an online rebirth of the...
And you guys you're in the Bob Bullock Museum now, your writings, or is it the Briscoe?
Oh, the Briscoe.
The Briscoe. So is that all of your stuff, the rag and also the rag radio?
There's a whole bunch of collections related. Alice Embry has a collection. There are a lot of people have a collection. I have a collection at the Dolph Briscoe Center for American History. And one of the things they've got, and it's never been set up, they've transcribed a bunch of my radio shows. And so you can find those there. But also, eventually, when they get the new software set up, everything's been slowed down a little bit by what's been going on in the world. But you're going to be able to go to the Briscoe Center and listen to every one of my shows, which is like over 400. So that's kind of cool.
And some amazing guests, too. Some really, really cool stuff to listen to. And you and Scoop worked together at KPFT. Can we hear some war stories?
War story.
War stories have to come from Scoop. Well, yeah, that was quite a time, huh?
Yeah, you kept my sanity on somewhat of a level. When I was doing the news, I could get you on one of the monitors and hear something sane after going through all this insane news, really bad news in the early 70s. Yeah. It's like you were a little puddle of sanity out there on the radio.
I was a puddle. You know, they had to mop me up.
There was a drought, and so it was nice.
Yeah.
But
y'all got bombed. Is that what happened at KPFT?
We got bombed. No,
I bet. Yeah.
Oh, they mean blown.
You didn't bomb. People bombed you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, we were great. We never bombed on the air. We were always.
No, of course not.
But yeah, twice the station was blown off, the transmitter was blown off the air, and it's the only station in the history of this country to even be blown off the air one time.
Yeah.
So
we did it twice.
And we did it
and
twice.
we didn't enjoy it twice.
Right.
But
It's so funny. Go ahead.
You experienced some unseemly interruptions of your business at Space City from certain folks that wear funny hoods and.
Yeah. Well, it turned out that the Ku Klux Klan sort of was revitalized in the late 60s, early 70s especially, and the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan suddenly reemerged, and I think they were afraid of African American people, so they started attacking us. They didn't think we'd fight back.
You were an easy target.
Yeah, and so they bombed our offices. They firebombed a car out front. They shot up the office. They also shot up some of our advertisers. They shot up my mother's art gallery.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I think they didn't like her because, one, she showed Black artists and she showed women artists, but also she was kind of a known peacenik. So who knows what all. And then one evening, I guess it was, a cop car pulled up from each direction in front of the office, and then another car, not a cop car, came in between them, and somebody rolled down the window, pulled out a crossbow, and shot an arrow into the front door from a crossbow, which had a sticker on it that said, "The Knights of the Ku Klux Klan is watching you." So,
and that gives you an idea of the state of the Houston Police Department at that time.
Yeah, this was before Fred Hoffines moved in and started trying to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, before he cleaned things up there, it was it was a scary place to be sometimes.
It was somebody said that throw down guns the term started in Houston. I don't know, but they certainly throwing into the bio started in Houston, I believe.
Yeah. And one of the things that I experienced from just being involved at KPFT is we got in new stickers, said Pacifica on it. And someone put it on the back bumper of my car. I didn't even know it. And I got out of the station and started driving home, and this police car followed me all the way. I didn't look that bad. They followed me to my doorstep and just sat there and looked at me. I got out, I looked on my bumper and saw that sticker. I went, might as well have had a big target on my back. Well, it was that way.
Here's another one. A young kid started coming into the RAG office, to the Space City office, and wanting to help. And he had a heavy accent, and he didn't seem to know anything. He had no politics or anything. He just sort of showed up and wanted to know if he could help. Well, two of our Cam and Sue Duncan, two of our staffers, went to a Klan rally, believe it or not, outside of Houston. I cannot imagine going to a Klan rally. And they saw him there in a robe, in his whole thing, the same guy. And it didn't surprise anybody because we all suspected him. And so later, when he came back into the office, they got a camera and started chasing him down the street. Cam Duncan got him in a headlock, and they took a picture, and the picture was in Space City. It was a great picture of
that was a beautiful picture. I remember when that happened, and everyone was just amazed. But that sort of thing happened a lot. There were always these funny people that would show up being real clueless, but really eager to be part of whatever was going on.
For infiltrate.
What's interesting here is that people think that kind of like crazy, that right-wing crazy, Klan crazy, that's some new thing or something that hadn't been happening. But man, back in the late 60s, those guys were out in force.
Yeah, well,
There was
they
a
have
culture
quite
war
history
happening
in
then,
Texas.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. The paper in Dallas, this wasn't the Klan in this case, but a paper called Dallas Notes.
Stony Burns.
That was run by Stony Burns, who was a great guy, crazy man. And the police would come in. It was the cops just directly did it there. They didn't use the Klan. And they would come in and take all of their equipment out and throw it and destroy it, throw it out in the street. And they had just continual problems. And then, of course, Stoney got framed with, or I don't know if he was framed or not, but he got charged with, he got found with a joint, and he got charged with selling for having one joint. And he ended up getting out. But they just were after them. I mean, Dallas was even worse in general.
Yeah, well, Houston had quite a history with that kind of mischief as well. You and I well remember the saga of Leotis Johnson. Yeah, that's one story I covered to the point where I was getting harassed by the liberal supporters of the station for giving it too much airtime. But this is a guy, a fine young man, a math major, who got set up by police.
He was a member of SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
Yeah, and so he was immediately a target. And he was arrested for having allegedly a joint, and they put him away. It was supposed to be 40 years. Fortunately, people were able to organize and get him out way sooner. But that was the kind of thing that happened on a regular basis in Houston.
And he was never the same afterwards either.
Right. He was an intelligent guy.
Destroyed him.
I talked to his family the day he was released. His mother and his family came into the station, and we talked to them, and they were already concerned because something like that is hard to shake off. Especially the Texas prison system in those days was not a very nice place to be.
No,
I remember the Free Leotis slogan was everywhere.
And then there
was Free Holies.
Yeah.
And do you remember how that started?
I'm trying to remember, but it was hilarious when it did.
Yeah, they thought, I think it was Preston Smith or someone, the governor, heard people chanting Free Leotis, and he thought they were chanting Free Holies. And I don't remember the rest of the story, but you don't need any more than that.
Yes.
That's fun enough.
That's the punchline right
That's
there.
a
It's good
punchline.
enough. That's a Preston Smithism, definitely.
Right.
God.
So
That's brilliant.
I'm
So do
pretty
you
sure
think that's happening? Do you think that's happening right now to journalists? I mean, is this, but it's on a larger, like the actual folks you see on TV and stuff from what, I mean, I saw people shooting at journalists the other day. Cops.
Well, we're in a whole different era. We're in a whole different ball game, a whole different paradigm. So it's hard to compare what was happening then with what's happening now. But yes, I mean, journalists are under siege all over the place.
Yeah,
Well, the people then who were kind of doing those sorts of things, I mean, they were there, but they didn't have the kind of power and force that they have today, and they're not as organized.
Yeah.
And part of the reason they're organized now is because they have the internet to sort of pull their force together.
They also have the President of the United States.
Indeed.
Kind of an important point. So
and they can keep him.
Take him away.
Take him.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Thorne, COINTELPRO.
Hmm?
And I've read through a lot of the declassified papers, and so much of that was like deja vu all over again. It's like, I remember stuff like that. And did you experience anything that in retrospect had a very COINTELPRO smell to it? They disrupted so many organizations.
Well, there's a couple of stories. I don't know how many stories you want to hear, but one thing I did was I went with a group I went to Czechoslovakia with a group of peace activists, journalists, and pastors, religious leaders. And we went to meet with the Viet Cong and the Vietnam and the North Vietnamese, with the National Liberation Front and the North Vietnamese in Czechoslovakia. And we spent about a 3-day session with them, and they ended up releasing some prisoners of war to us, which was very interesting.
Wow.
But when I can't remember, I think it was right before I left, I had a briefcase, and that I think I stopped and made I was in New York City, and I stopped and made a phone call and had set the briefcase down. And the briefcase had all of this information about the trip. It had all this information about people on the left. It just had a whole lot of stuff. And just, I was this crazy journalist, and I had all this stuff. So anyway, after I got off the phone, it was gone. And a couple of days later, we got a call from the FBI, and they said, "Oh, we have a briefcase. We have a briefcase here."
Surprise!
And they gave it back to me. So, very bizarre, because they now had all the information. They didn't need any more. But
well, you should have at least invoiced them for your time and effort. I mean, some agent a whole lot of footwork.
Yeah, that same kind of I'm sorry. I was just going to say the same kind of thing just happened to Alan Pogue. He got his stuff ripped off and the cops, I still don't think, have given it back. Yeah. So I think, a lot of journalists are having that. So that's crazy, though.
That's different from, he was in a confrontational situation, and this other thing was just where they were just following it. They were following me around.
And did you notice being followed at other times?
No. Oh, other times?
Yeah.
Oh, in Austin, frequently the cops were, the plainclothes cops would follow us around. Wow. But the other thing, which I'm blanking on. The Hamilton files. Has anyone heard about the Hamilton files? Alan Hamilton was the chief of police at the University of Texas. And he died. And when he died, his son went into his home office and found all these boxes and boxes of stuff. And it was all files. It was all UT files. It was all mostly of surveillance of radicals and others at UT. And about a half of it was about the Charles Whitman shootings. But the other half was all about his surveillance of us. And so his son, who found the stuff, went to Half Price Books and offered to sell this stuff, not the Hamilton stuff he had already given to the Whitman stuff he'd already given to the University of Texas, but the other stuff he tried to sell to, and they bought it because they didn't want it going somewhere else. So, and they're old hippies, the people who own Half Price Books. And so they contacted us. They contacted Alice Embry, my colleague, and then she called me, and we went to Dallas, where the Half Price Books headquarters are. And there were all these just boxes and boxes of stuff on all kinds of levels, microfilm, petitions with names on them, FBI memos and stuff, just a whole bunch of stuff. And so I took all of that and I wrote it. It was a cover story in the Texas Observer called "The Spies of Texas." And it was just astounding stuff. I mean, they had petitions with everybody from Kinky Friedman, Lloyd Doggett. I mean, just all these different kind of people. But they also, it turned out, because I did a little bit more research, and it turned out that the UT police worked with the city police, the state police, and FBI and COINTELPRO. And so all of those organizations were interconnected. They were all working together. Including military police. There we go. Boy.
Yeah, he's Johnny on the spot, isn't he?
Even a paranoid can have enemies, Henry Kissinger. Wow.
There's an oldie but goodie.
Yes.
Yes, Henry was an agent of himself. He did his own
seriously, these materials provide a window. Well, it went by too fast. But anyway, it was just,
was it?
I don't know. Don't worry about it. We're on
I want you-
the site.
Uh-oh.
Janis Joplin, Jerry Jeff Walker. I'm surprised my dog hadn't done that in the other room. So,
We're dog friendly. We don't edit out any doggies.
so
Let's see here. There are several images in here.
yeah, it turned out that John Economity, the right-wing editor of the Daily Texan that I told you about, also was an informer to the campus police, and so we found lots of stuff that he had written, notes, memos, stuff at this SDS meeting. So and so did so and so. So when I was working on this article, and remember, I did this article just about 20 years ago. I mean, or something. It wasn't back then. It was after I came, maybe 15 years ago, and so all of this stuff was so. I've lost my train of thought, which it's amazing I haven't done a whole bunch.
You were talking about the files that Half Price Books got and gave to you, and you wrote the article just 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, we did stuff like we went and John Economity, who was the editor of the Daily Texan, who the right winger who had run, he turned out he was an informer. And so when I was working on this article, I called him, I located him and tracked him down and called him. And he was just all hell fellow well met. Oh, Thorne, how are you? It was so funny. But he said, I asked him about it, and he said, no, he said, it was totally inappropriate for me behavior for me as a journalist. So he said that. I don't know how much he meant it, and that's in the article. So.
That's usually the thing you say when you get caught red-handed.
Yeah.
Oh, I shouldn't have ever done that.
Sorry.
My bad.
But I wonder what that led to, though. Do you think it led to any arrests or anything like that?
Who knows? I mean, it could have led to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of activity was pervasive throughout the country, throughout the world. In fact, the FBI, CIA had a lot of people doing a lot of unseemly things. And speaking of all that, Thorne, COINTELPRO, do you think COINTELPRO is alive again or something similar? You see things happening in the intelligence agencies that have been recently co-opted by Trump and his boys. Do you see anything like that reappearing? Well,
again, like I said, I think it's a whole different world. But I mean, yeah, there are things like that reappear. It's just that it's also so much more confusing now because you've got Trump, who's this very confusing character anyway, and his coming down on CIA and FBI people who, in fact, were trying to supposedly turn in people who were doing bad. I mean, it's just so complicated now.
Yeah, he's trying to do a reversal of the church committee, which undid the evils. So he's doing a reverse church on us, I think.
Yeah. Well, he's certainly doing a reverse church. What else would the Satan do? Yeah,
so Thorne, what's going on with New Journalism Project?
Well, the New Journalism Project, which we formed to publish the RAG blog when we first started the RAG blog, and then it became the sponsor of RAG Radio when we got RAG Radio going. It's now a publishing entity as well. And we did, I've got it here. I'm turning around.
Okay, that's really cool that it's a publishing entity. I'm excited about that.
This book, it's backwards.
No, it's not. It's perfect. I have one of those.
It's just backwards here.
It's just backwards to you, but it's good for us.
Good. Perfect. You're seeing it right.
We're good. We see
I'm confused. I get confused by sort of simple little things like that. This was a book that we did called Celebrating the Rag. You can see it's a major undertaking. It has, these are the Freak Brothers on the cover.
There's some great pictures in there too.
And there's all kinds of great art and there's like about 100 articles from the original RAG, plus there's a whole lot of new material, plus there's all this iconic art that's in it. So we published that in 2016, and it had got national reviews. It did very well. Sold a lot, considering that we published it ourselves. I mean, we are a publishing company now too. But
what are you publishing now? What are y'all doing now?
Well, we've done some other books, but another big one that we're working on is we have just succeeded in getting the Space City collection digitized. This is the great triumph, probably, of all the things we've done. We got the RAG digitized, and we're trying to preserve the history.
Yes.
And so we got the RAG digitized, and we've gotten Space City digitized. And so it's all up there. Anybody can go and see you can see every cover. You can go through the entire paper.
Do they go to njp.org, or where do they go to see that?
Well, the Space City is at the Internet Archive, archive.org.
Okay.
And the other one, the RAG is in a thing called Independent Voices, and it's available. You find it on Jester.
Okay.
The research engine for academic stuff, but it's open access.
So how difficult was it?
So anyway, we're doing a book.
Rounding all that up.
It was very difficult.
Did you have anything that was that was really hard to find? Any issues or any particular sources?
Well, we have 3 issues that we still don't have of Space City because we just have not been able to locate them. But basically, most of them came from like major collections that people had, former staffers who had most of the papers. And then we just started searching around for the missing ones. So but they were all digitized. They're all searchable online.
Wow. So somebody actually sat down and entered it all in?
Some bodies. a bunch of people worked on it, on the RAG book. And now a bunch of people are working on Space City. Just creating databases and stuff right now, but then we're going to go through and we're going to pick the articles that we want to run, and some people are going to write new material and stuff. So that's going to be, I don't know when it'll be out, but probably next year, maybe early.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Are you just publishing that kind of stuff, or do you publish fiction or poetry or anything like that?
We've published several poetry books, and we published a little history of a family's history in Wimberley, Texas, which is a very cool little book. So there's a lot of we're doing, but the major thing we're doing is these 2 books. But we'll do more. We'll do more kinds of things. So.
Well, let me know by email what issues of Space City you're missing. I have a ton of stuff in my storage, and a lot of Space City and whatnot. So just in case.
Okay.
And we can tell our listeners and viewers and readers the same thing. That's how you find things in the social media age. Is hey, does anyone have this? And you'd be surprised how often it comes up.
Also, by the way, this book, something can be got. You can get it at lulu.com. It's very simple, very easy. That's just the best way to get it. We don't send them out, but you go to lulu.com and Google.
Is it LULU or LOU?
LULU.com.
Okay.
It's they publish the book and then they print them on demand. So.
Thorne, who is, and this is going to be kind of an unfair question, but who is your very favorite interview?
Oh, I don't have a very favorite. I really don't.
Is there one that stands out more than any others that you remember?
Oh, I know. I mean, I'm putting together a series of interviews right now that's going to be in a book. And, I had some great ones. I had a wonderful one with Dan Rather and Robin Rather, his daughter, who's an environmentalist. That was a lot of fun. Of course, the moment when you asked me something like that, I suddenly can't think of anything.
Well, you had Bernie on, right?
Yeah, I had Bernie Sanders, which was very cool. I had Ed Sanders, who started the Fugs, and was involved in starting the East Village Other. That was and was also like kind of an old beatnik. And so I had a wonderful interview with David Amram. And I don't know if any of you know David Amram, but he's a sort of
absolutely.
Renaissance. Okay, cool. A Renaissance figure in American music.
Oh, yeah.
And was also an original beatnik. He was actually involved in the Brada Museum thing where Kerouac and others read poetry and performed. And he was a jazz musician, but he's also a symphonic composer and just does all kinds of things. And he was on the show. He had brought all these esoteric instruments that he'd gotten from around the world, and he performed them on them, and I loved it. It was a lot of fun. So we've had all kinds of things. We've had Eddie Wilson, Threadgills and Armadillo World Headquarters. We've had lots of musicians, Guy Forsyth, Eliza Wilkeson, just a whole range of people. But we've had a lot of pretty famous people too that were doing some of these for the book.
And you've brought it back on since COVID has started. You've been able to bring it back.
Yeah, what we did, nobody's producing shows out of Co-op Radio now. What they do, you produce it at home, homegrown, and then they put it on the schedule. So you have to do it earlier in the week, and like this is being done in a sense. I mean, except this is live, it's more complicated in a sense because you have to not only get somebody lined up, but then you have to get the time that you can do it on Zoom. We do it on, that you can do the interview and stuff. But yeah, we've done about 4. We were just running best of shows until we kind of got us set up where we were comfortable. But now we're doing new ones. We've done 4 new ones, and we have some. This week is not a new one, but we're gonna have a show this Friday. It's at 2:00. We're gonna have a show with Gilbert Shelton and the underground comics, famous underground comics artist, and Paul Buell, who is a publisher of it's many things, but a publisher especially of graphic histories and that kind of thing. But he and Gilbert were both involved in this thing called Radical America Comics. So we're rerunning that show, and it's always wonderful to hear Gilbert Shelton.
How old is that show?
It's not just a couple of years.
Oh. Hey, I want to mention that Shanta Stevens, who is one of the Plutopian adherents, I guess you would say, has posted in Facebook. He says, "The Rag and Space City are legendary in the history of Texas journalism. Thank you for sharing your genius with the world."
Well,
yes.
Mention that.
Thank you so much.
I'll add an amen to that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Well, Thorne, what are your future plans for Rag Radio? Now and when you're out live on the air again?
when I'm out of prison, as it were.
It's when the warden lets you loose.
Yeah, when the warden lets me loose. Well, I'm just right now probably keep doing the same thing that we had been doing over time. I mean, we'll keep doing a show a week, and we have several other outlets around the country that replay the show, and we also have have it up as podcasts. So we'll keep doing it, and I'm still doing the Rag blog. It's not at the height of its popularity as it was once, but we're still publishing a lot of stuff. And the publishing business and the public business, Rag Radio is syndicated.
Okay, yeah, that's what I asked. And in California and Ohio, I think you said.
It's Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Houston, KPFT plays
That's
it
a
on
very
their
cool
HD,
thing.
Plays it on their HD3 channel. So it's still out there. I'm getting a little tired.
You don't get to be tired.
Yeah. And it's strange that you would get to get tired at my young age, but no, but I can't. I mean, if I weren't doing this stuff, I don't know what I would do. I need to be busy. I need to do stuff. I need to still. The other thing that I want to do is to be writing, and I am putting together this book of rag radio interviews, which may be published by UT Press, but if not, we're going to publish it by New Journalism Project. So,
well,
so
that
cool.
sounds like a great project.
Yeah. Oh, we've got some very, very cool. I've got David Amram is one of the interviews that I've got on there, and a lot of people, a lot of interesting people.
Must be a lot of work transcribing.
Paul Krasner, the satirist.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss Paul.
Yeah, it's a great loss.
Oh yeah, Paul was on our show many times. Tom Hayden is on it. Because I did several shows with Tom Hayden. So anyway,
A bunch of communists.
Yeah.
The beat goes on. The communist beat. So, no. Yeah, we're a bunch of commies.
That was always my favorite thing of encountering people on the streets outside of our studios, the beautiful Atlanta Life building. And one guy came up to me. I was wearing the Pacifica T-shirt that had the Statue of Liberty and holding a microphone printed on it. And he gets in my face and said, "So you're going in to work for the communists?" I said, "Well, yeah, they have a better dental plan, but their paychecks are really low." And this guy just froze. It's like, okay, he's dangerous.
Speaking of which, and I don't know how much time we have, but Mitch Green, who you know, and I think you know Mitch Green, don't you? He was news director later.
He hired me.
He hired you earlier then. That's right. That stuff I really can't handle. Mitch Green and Gary Thayer, I guess, did the news. But when Mitch said that he had Frank Converse, who was or Louis Beam, I think it was Frank Converse, who was the head of the Ku Klux Klan,
right?
The Grand Dragon and so he came on and he demanded to have a show. This was after the first bombing. I don't know if you know anything about this, but Mitch tells this story, and he said that he demanded to have a show, and he said that the station did a Klan show for a brief period of time, but he said that the Klan got all upset because nobody was listening, and so they went out and bombed the station again. That was Mitch's story.
So there is your motive right there. You don't need Sherlock Holmes to figure that one out.
Right. I can't
Gary
stand by all of that. But
if I remember correctly, Gary Thayer went out and interviewed Frank Converse at his own home. And that was an interesting interview. And, Gary was not really concerned. I thought I'd be scared to death given his track record with the Klan, but it apparently was not a big deal, and it was an interesting, although scary interview. The guy had some strange beliefs, believe it or not.
So, okay.
And they're back. Those people seem to be back. Yeah. And but I don't know what the disconnect is, though. And I don't really know what the disconnect is with some of your peers not still supporting Trump. I don't understand that. Some of
my peers.
Yeah, you're the folks y'all's age. I mean, I'm 50, so I guess I'm up there too. But I know a lot of septuagenarians, and there are a lot of them who are Trump supporters, and I just don't understand the disconnect, because you guys were, you're the same era, so I don't.
Yeah, but everybody wasn't on our side in the first place, and in the second place, age does certain things to you and tends to make you more conservative.
Go ahead.
They took all the wrong drugs.
Yeah. We
Or
had
none.
the good drugs. We had the good drugs, and they, we didn't.
Yeah.
They had the brown
We didn't
acid.
share well enough with
Yeah.
those.
Cheap
Well, I
moonshine
have to say, I mean, I
produced
tend to hang out with younger people a lot, but I do know people my age, and I don't know very many people who are my age and are Trump supporters.
I don't either, frankly.
Yeah.
But
I do. I
Well,
do.
I-
And
I-
it's, yeah,
But
Yeah,
you hang out with another crowd.
I do. hang out with another crowd. It's true. It's true.
Well, John and I grew up in the same small West Texas town, and I unfortunately do still know a lot of folks who are ultra Trump.
Yeah, there may
To
be
the
some of
point
those
of,
out there for
you know,
sure.
They keep trying to save me, and it's like, please,
Well,
please don't
it's-
pray for me because
it's people who are anti-fact.
Yeah.
I mean, who are into conspiracy theories and don't basically believe anything that the media says. And I think that's the Trump has just so bamboozled them. But I think there's also more and more people who now, because of everything that's going on right at this time, who are slipping away from Trump, who are starting to get disillusioned.
like the Lincoln Project. Have you seen their ads they're running? The
Yeah, those
anti-Trump.
guys were never Trump supporters.
Yeah, and then 43. What is it? The 43. There's a new one that's all the folks from the Bush.
Yeah.
And that's called 43 against Trump or something like that.
Well, this is something that it's a kind of thinking that's been around for a long time, but nobody took it very seriously before. And those guys were just thought of as kind of like a bunch of loonies, people who kind of didn't have a good grasp on reality. And then they got one of their guys into the White House, and they picked up a certain kind of authority from that, I guess, for their ideas. But I don't think that's ever been sustainable. Sooner or later that something like that starts coming apart. It's just like if you tell lies all the time, you may get away with it for a while, but sooner or later it starts catching up with you. If you are not perceiving what's real, and if you are not adhering to actual facts, sooner or later that catches up with you.
Facts, what a concept. Of course, it didn't keep Alex Jones from becoming a media darling of certain folks.
Actually, Thorne made a face when I said that. Did you disagree?
I said the A words, Thorne, sorry.
Wait, what did I make a face when you said what?
Alex
Jones.
When I said that it wasn't sustainable.
Oh,
I was just wondering
No, I should realize that I've got faces showing.
We're talking to Radio Man.
Yeah, I just don't know I'm just not sure of anything right now.
I don't think anyone is. I think that's one reason we're glad Rag Radio's back on, and why we're here, right, is I think everybody's just trying to get to the truth, and our government's not leading us, so we have to look to each other and say what is real, what is not real.
Our government's leading us, but it's kind of a lemming kind of thing over the cliff to doom, and so we have to avoid the other lemmings.
Well, I think truth is hard.
Well, we need to be careful not to just go out on the lemming. But, on that note, so anyway.
Yeah. So when is Rag Radio on? It's on Fridays at 2
at 2 o'clock. From 2 to 3, and it's on KOOP, KOOP 91.7 FM in Austin. It's koop.org if you want to listen to the stream. The stream is also at Radio Free America, and you can also, all the shows are posted as podcasts at archive.org.
That's so great. That's wonderful.
So,
Yes.
so final messages, not final, but do you have,
No, not final.
Yes, let's not say final.
do you have a,
Closing messages.
a
Well, maybe
There we go.
closing message for the masses?
me.
You, of course.
People just got to keep trucking along. You know, I mean, I haven't gone anywhere for 4 months. You know, I mean, except to go to curbside at HEB and to go to the drive-through at Walgreens. I have not been inside any establishment for 4 months.
Do you see people wearing masks when they walk by or when you do go out?
The only other thing I do is I walk my dog, and I don't see a lot of masks. But on the other hand, I'm on a street where I only pass 1 or 2 people. It's not like I'm down at the park where there's where there's lots and lots of people. So,
Well, people aren't wearing masks when they're out just exercising, just walking or running.
you know, generally.
And they're totally supposed to.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
not really.
but it's not. It depends. They're saying that the real critical thing is to wear them when you're inside in a closed-in space.
Yeah, there's actually an exception for exercise and when you're outside,
Okay.
but you are supposed to keep your distance. You just don't have to wear the mask.
Well, I wear it.
And there's an exception for religious services, so you have to whisper when you say it.
Well, I'm just prime meat.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
all
I guess
targets.
in a sense, maybe all of us are. So I just a preponderance of caution, and so I think everybody should do it, and I think it's hard sometimes to maintain, but I'm having a lot of stuff I'm doing. I'm writing, and doing the radio show, and
People
Susie,
were able.
by the way, Susie's part of our radio show too.
That's right. Proudly. Well, you're one of my mentors. You're one of my heroes. So I'm so proud to work with you. I wouldn't be doing any of this if it weren't for
I sure
Thorne
don't
and
feel like a
Ray Hill.
hero.
Oh, but you are. I promise you and Ray Hill made a huge difference in my life.
Yeah. So, okay.
So,
Where are we, guys?
Oh, I thought you were.
I found what the mask requirement actually says about being outside, and it says if you're outside and you can't social distance by 6 feet consistently, then you should wear a mask.
Oh, that's better. Now I can
So
walk my dog without.
Yeah, so you can,
passing out.
as long as you can stay 6 feet from other people. Though there's some question now about whether 6 feet is enough, but
Yeah, that's
Just
because they're
6
finding
feet.
now that they think that it's not just particles that might come from a cough into your face, but that it's also going to be carried in the air, possibly for greater distances. That's the latest. Lots of scientists have started to believe that. So,
And we're sitting on a whole bunch of remdesivir. Is that how you say it? The drug. Apparently, we bought up all the remdesivir.
yeah, much to the chagrin of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to stop our conspirator in chief. But I'm waiting for QAnon to come out with their mask recommendations. That should be odd.
General Flynn just came out and took an oath to them.
A lot of people have.
What is happening?
well, see,
it's
that's
because they want to catch the pedophiles,
Oh,
the elite.
And watch
Group
out
of
for those pizza
pedophiles.
parlors.
I just think none of it. The center will not hold.
That's right.
We just don't know where it's going to go. I mean, I happen to find the stormtroopers to be frightening.
yeah.
And all of the stuff that's so much of the stuff that's going on, I think is kind of frightening. The reactionary stuff, and I just think we have to be hopeful. We have to be thoughtful, and we have to keep ourselves educated. Make sure that we have good sources of information, and just soak it up. So that we know.
And that's how we're gonna go out.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
Obviously, the
No,
dog.
no,
I'm sorry. Oh, that wasn't me. Oh.
Thorne,
that was me.
Thorne, you have the dog vote, so I think there's hope. And those were words to end by. I guess we're up on 8 o'clock now.
Are we?
Yes.
Yeah,
It
and
just,
I.
it just flew by.
It did. It just blew
But
by.
thank you so much
This
for
has been
joining
fun.
us.
Yeah, let's
This-
do it again.
I'm for it. I'm all for it.
Right on.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you so much.
I love you all, and thank you all.
Thank
Love you,
Thorne.
Thorne. I'll see you later.
See you down the
Okay.
track.
Right.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye. We will see you.
Bye. We'll see you in our dreams.